When the pandemic hit the cities, the world watched the hospitals crumble. But when it hit the forgotten, isolated tribal tracts of Nandurbar, there were no hospitals to watch. There was only the suffocating dark. Chapter 1. The Medical Void. It was May 2021, the height of the second wave. The nearest hospital was hours away, completely choked. In this remote corner of Maharashtra, Jawaharlal Dharma began to suffocate. Left entirely to die by the system, his family turned to the only authority left in the dark, a local occult healer. A virus is invisible. You cannot see it, you cannot fight it. And in a village with no doctors, that makes it the perfect breeding ground for a curse. Chapter 2. The Witchcraft Diagnosis. The occult healer didn't see a respiratory illness. He diagnosed something far older. He convinced the terrified family that an illness-bearing witchcraft had possessed Jawaharlal's flesh. To save his life, the dark magic had to be forced out. Outside the hut, a heavy agricultural iron rod was laid into the fire until it glowed like molten glass. The iron glowed hotter. The family watched, frozen between faith and horror. No medicine, no oxygen, no doctor. Only fire and superstition standing between a dying man and death. This was not ancient history. This happened in 2021, while the world was fighting a pandemic with science. In Nandurbar, the forgotten were left to face the invisible enemy with burning iron and blind belief. Because when the system abandons you, darkness fills the void. And darkness always has a price. Superstition doesn't argue with science. It destroys the body to save an imaginary soul. When fire meets flesh, the illusion of medicine dies instantly. Chapter 3. The Purification by Fire. The mantravadi pressed the white-hot iron rod directly onto the elderly man's bare chest. The skin blistered and charred instantly. Jawaharlal screamed, but his lungs were already failing. His voice broke into a choked whisper as the healer branded him repeatedly, claiming each burn was driving the invisible witchcraft out of his body. Jawaharlal's eyes were wide with an unimaginable combination of respiratory suffocation and agonizing physical trauma. His gaze stared directly into the void, while the silhouette of the healer stood unmoved behind him. The healer leaves when the fire goes out, but the burns stay, and the virus doesn't care about the scars left behind. Chapter 4. The Ashes of Superstition. The miracle never arrived. Jawaharlal was left with severe infected third-degree burns across his body. On top of his already failing lungs, the damage was catastrophic and irreversible. This isn't an ancient myth. This happened in May 2021, a recorded legal case of severe physical trauma. Driven by absolute panic, the system had failed him twice. First, by leaving him without medicine, and second, by leaving him to the fire. When superstition fills the void that medicine leaves behind, the most vulnerable always pay the price. You think education and laws can extinguish superstition? No. Law only works when people aren't terrified for their next breath. Chapter 5. The Unresolved Fear. When the police raided the area, the quack doctors scattered into the hills, leaving behind an entire community bound by absolute silence. Out here, when the next crisis hits, they won't look for a clinic that doesn't exist. They will look back into the dark. They will stoke the furnace, heat the metal, and wait for the fire. If you ever find yourself in the remote corners of the world during a panic, look closely at the shadows. Because the furnace is being lit again. The frame closes back to where everything began, a dead, rusty medical oxygen cylinder with its gauge at 0. A pale, trembling old hand slowly moves into the frame, reaching desperately toward the empty valve. Twilight falls again over the village and the cycle refuses to break. The camera pulls back infinitely, revealing the story trapped inside a comic book panel loop. The quack doctors are gone, but their influence remains carved deep into the community's collective memory. Fear does not need a body to survive. It lives in whispers passed between trembling hands. Another group gathers beneath the dark tree, the same whispers, the same shadows, the same dangerous ritual beginning again. The iron rod glows again. The furnace breathes again. The loop is sealed with fire and silence. This is not history. This is happening right now in the shadows you cannot see. The sickness was never only in the air. It lived in the fear, and the fear never left. Follow me, before the shadows pull you across the line.